guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm Dr. Lynda Cramer. Okay, today I'm going to do an in-depth video regarding my own near-death experience. I have had a lot of interviews on other people's channels, but what I find is when I'm an interviewee for other people is I must leave stuff out because of their time restraints. Some of them asked me to tell my story in 20 minutes, which obviously I went to heaven for 5 years. So how can I condense that down to 20 minutes? So today I'm going to go through my book with you. It's called 5 Years in Heaven, The Teachings of Heaven. This is on lulu.com, Lulu.com, under Dr. Lynda Cramer. I've got 4 books there if you're interested. And I'm going to go through the chapters in here today, in depth, what happened to me when I died in 2001, because I was over 14 minutes clinically dead, which some people like proof. So I have all my medical files from the Cabarrus County Hospital, which is now called the Atrium Hospital. It's located in Charlotte, North Carolina, Concord, I should say, it was near Charlotte. And this is all my medical files from when I died. Okay, obviously I've taken my name out because and my date of birth, private information, so no one can track or hack me. So I've got proof. I'm also going to show the pictures today that are in my book, okay? Because I do have, some people love seeing visualizations. So today I'm going to go through the chapters of my book, explain where I went, how I was there. So I'm going to refer to this, which is the table of contents, okay? So buckle up, put me on, if you're driving or whatever, please listen, because this is my truth. This is what happened to me. I don't have to justify this. It happened back in 2001. And I do not have to justify, pretend, or make up what happened, because I'll let you know a secret. 2003, 2 years after I died, I spoke to Dr. Raymond Moody. I found his email address and I emailed him. And I said, what the hell has happened to me? And over 6 months we emailed back and forward, Dr. Raymond Moody and myself. And his quote to me in an email was, my experience was one of the most in-depth experiences he had ever heard of. Now, if you know who Dr. Raymond Moody is, that means a heck of a lot. So here we go. This is what happened. It's my truth. A lot of people ask me, how did I die? Why do we ask that for? What is the importance of knowing how a person died? It's inevitable for all of us, correct? And there are certain private things about death that we don't want to disclose because it's so intimate. I don't want to talk about abuse that I was receiving from my ex-husband. I don't want to talk about his perspective of what happened. But please know I was under extreme stress at the time. It was the 6th of May 2001. I had been struggling to breathe for days because of the stress I was under. He would not take me to a doctor, so that's on him. I woke up and I don't know what time it was. I just say it was about 2 o'clock because I go by my medical reports when the ambulances turned up. So it would have been about 2 o'clock in the morning when I woke up. I got out of bed and I like going to diagrams. So the first diagram I've got here is this one. I was asleep in this bed here. I was asleep in there and I had to go to the toilet, which was up in here. It took me over 10 minutes to get that distance because I couldn't breathe. So when I got to the toilet, I sat down on the toilet, and the next thing I know is that I'm floating in the living room, which is around here through this doorway, in the living room near the front door, but I'm in this corner here, floating. I'm up near the ceiling and I'm looking down. I can see, I'll tell you what I saw. Okay, because people want to know what this floating is about, because this is the first thing I noticed. I was floating. There was no gravity. I couldn't move like left, right, up and down. I couldn't do that. I was just there. Then, as I looked down to the chair beneath me, the sofa, I saw I did not have feet. So between my knees to where my ankles were, it sort of just phased out to invisible. Okay, it wasn't just like cut off. It was like just phasing out, like a dissolve. So it did not scare me at all where I was. Seeing that I did not have feet did not scare me at all. Okay, the next thing I see is my ex-husband, because he was my husband at the time. He ran through from here, straight past where I was. He ran over to the door and he opened the front door. So it's virtually in front of me over on that corner. In came through the door 2 paramedics. One was young. The other one, he would have only been like 25. The other one is a little bit older, so 25, 30-ish. They carried their bags of equipment and they came through to where my body was over here. Okay? So I'm just floating there. I saw them go through. I wasn't scared. I wasn't confused. I was at peace. There was peace there. So I'm floating there and there was no thoughts of things like, oh my God, the house is up untidy. I should have cleaned up before guests arrived. How do I pay my bills? Am I dead? I didn't even think at that point, am I dead? Because I was alive where I was at this point. Okay? And I noticed a few things because I was floating for, I think, about 45 minutes in Earth time, which I'll explain in a minute. But during that 45 minutes that I was floating, I did not breathe. And another thing that came to me was I did not blink. I didn't swallow. See, I've just swallowed. When we talk, we have to swallow our saliva. I didn't need to swallow. I was just there in peace. I was still wearing my pajamas, by the way, that I had slept in, and I got up at 2 o'clock. So I'll tell you the events. My ex-husband, he says that he heard someone banging on the wall. I didn't do that because I had no strength in me to make a bang that from here he would hear sleeping over here and in his sleep. So I was incapable of doing that bang. So who is that? And I call that my lady who is always with me. If you follow me, you know who my lady is. I talk about her in chapter 1. Who is this lady in my book? Okay? What does she do for me? How has she saved my life? You know, she pushed me out of the car when I broke my neck before I had I ran into a bridge, that sort of thing. So if you want to read that further, it's in my book, okay? So getting back to point. So he says he came in and I was already blue. So how long had I actually been dead for at that point? Because as you know, we turn blue after death. So he ran back into here, got the phone. The phone was actually over on this wall here. He ran around here, around the bed, got the phone, and he rang 911, which is the emergency phone number in America. That is when my 14 minutes started. So it's from the time he rang 911 until the first paramedics arrived. They came through and they confirmed dead. So that's the 14 minutes, okay? They started CPR, okay? Well, he was already doing CPR anyway because it says it here in my medical files. But they started CPR and it would have been about 10 minutes later that the second paramedics arrived. They were called the ALS, Advanced Life Support Crew. They turned up. The first ones were the BLS, Basic Life Support. So the advanced crew turned up. They came in with the defibrillator. They came in with all these bags. And I'm just floating there in the corner, watching them come through the front door. They're all going past me. Then the sheriff arrived. Oh my gosh, hello. No, I didn't say that to him. I was at peace. I didn't even ask myself, what should I say to this man? All I did was observe peacefully, knowing that I didn't have feet and I couldn't move. So I was floating here with no feet, and in comes the sheriff. Now, we used to have, the chair was there, and there was another sofa here, which isn't important to my diagram. But the sheriff, he actually sat on that chair, and he was filling out forms and paperwork. He had a bit of a little gut on him, so his belly, you know when you've got a tight shirt on and your belly buttons, the buttons on your shirt like pop because they're too small? That's what happened with him. And he also had a limp. When he walked in the door, I noticed that he was limping. So he never went into the toilet where my body was. So how did I know out here that he was limping? How did I know the conversation that he had with other people in the house? Because the fire engine department turned up, more police turned up. I reckon there was about 6 people in the lounge room. And I heard their full conversations. I remember today what they were saying. They were interviewing and interrogating my ex-husband. They were asking him things like, what happened? How long has this been going on for? Other things that are too private here because obviously there was domestic violence involved. So they were interrogating him at this point, and I could feel his energy. He was extremely scared. Extremely scared. And so the next thing, they pull me out. 45 minutes later, it's in all my medical files how long they took to get me out of the house. So they pull me out on a trolley. Oh, I saw the guys come in with the gurney. They went in, they put me on a gurney, and I'm looking, and I saw them bring me out, but it was her. It wasn't me. It was her on the gurney. And I actually thought to myself at this point, I thought, what did they do to her hair? Her hair. So it wasn't me on the gurney at this point. It was someone else. I was disconnected. I was separate. I wasn't her at this point. So I saw my hair, which I thought, what did they do to her hair? Because it was all matted and it looked like it had gel in it. And I've seen in other people's stories about what happened when they had an NDE and they see themselves, and it's the same thing. So I have no idea what happens to our hair when we're seeing it from the afterlife, but it was true. It's my story, and I'm sticking to what I believe was my truth. So they wheeled me out. Everybody left. They all went out through the front door, and I'm still floating here. Then my ex-husband, he was in the house alone, and I saw him get his keys, and I saw him get his wallet, and he went out the door. He was the last one out, closed the door. He turned off the lights. So at this point, I was in darkness. But it wasn't darkness. It was like an ambient light. You know when you've got a candle on in a corner so you can still see a room? That's how it was. I could still see. But then the front door opened. The front door opened. And in through the door came all these blue orbs. Some of them were about this big. Some were quite big. So here's a diagram that's in my book. Here I am in my pajama t-shirt because I had pants and a t-shirt on. And these things came in. They came in through the doorway. And they're hovering as they're moving. But they didn't collide. And I feel that they were communicating. They didn't communicate with me. I received no information from these things, whatever they were. But they were a brilliant, beautiful hue of blue. Okay, they're sort of like this blue here on my folder. But inside the middle of them, it was the purest of white. But it was so blinding, but it didn't hurt my eyes. So there was white inside each one of them. And I could see through them. They were dimensional. I could see through them. And out of them had all these like, you know, like a Tesla bubble where it has all these like electron things coming out of it. Okay, so it had all this energy coming out of the side of them like little sparklers. They were all like little sparklers. And they came around me. And I wasn't scared of them at all. But they were hovering around me, doing their thing, whatever they were doing. And it was about 2 or 3 minutes, I would believe, that they were around me. I don't know what they were doing because there was no communication. But then instantly they all stopped and they all went out the door again. They all left and the door shut again. Now, how does the door shut when it was already locked in our 3D dimensional world? I have no idea. So then I'm alone in the house, floating above the chair, and I entered what I call the fog stage. Now, I talk about the fog stage in my book, but it's like closing your eyes. You open your eyes and you're in a totally different country. How does this work? I had no awareness that I had moved. I didn't feel that I had travelled at all, but I was instantly from one place to another. And I found myself standing in that field of flowers that people talk about when they pass over. So I have a photo of the flowers that were below me. This is in my book, and each of the petals had that same electricity coming out of the end of them like those orbs did. Now, the first thing that I interacted with there were the flowers. But I was looking around the hillside. It was sort of like the scene out of Sound of Music with Julia Andrews standing on the side of the Alps. And I could see all the rolling hills. I could see a city far, far, far away with all the high skyscrapers. I could see the mountain ranges. I could see a river. I could see everything around me and behind me because everything was panoramic. I could see behind me without turning my head. Everything was in front of me as a vision of eternity. And then I communicated with the flowers below my feet. And I looked down and I saw at this point that I had feet. My feet came back. Yay! So there I was, standing in this field of flowers with these. I cannot tell you the colours of these flowers because here on this earth, we only use 5% of the colour spectrum. So here's a little diagram. It's a pie chart. We only see this bit. All this represents the other colours that are out there. So how can I explain what this looks when we only see this part here? So these flowers were the most magnificent colours. They were vibrant. They were moving. They were living. The colour themselves lived. It was alive. And the energy coming out of the petals was alive. It was magnetic, like a magnet. I wanted to touch it, but I didn't have to touch it because I was the electricity. The electricity was everywhere, like a static. So I could hear the flowers at this point. It was telekinetic. And what they were saying was, we move because we know that you don't realise yet how to walk here. So as I moved my foot forward to make a footstep, the flowers below me moved so I wouldn't crush them. Pardon me? They knew I wouldn't crush them because we don't have a physical body in that space. But they respected me and they knew that I was a new arrival there. So how long was I in this place for? I say about 18 months. Now, how do I say 18 months when there's no time in heaven? I base it on conversations that I had with people. I base it on how far I walked. So as I walked down through cobbled pathways and along the river and through the cities, I estimated like a kilometre distance. And me in Earth, I walk at about 4 kilometres an hour. So as I travelled down these roads and I went hundreds and hundreds of metres, which would be a kilometre, and now you multiply that by 1,000 or 1,000,000. So it was an extremely long time that I was there. So some of the things that I interacted with there was the buildings. Why are there stairs going from floor to floor? but there's no elevators, because in this place there was no technology, there was no cars, there was no phones, there was no iPads, no mouse or computers, there was no ovens to cook because we didn't need to eat. One of my videos on my channel, if you go and watch it, is called What Do We Do All Day in Heaven? I've got another one there, Why Are There Chairs in Heaven? Why do we need to sit down if we don't have a physical body? So please go and look for that under my heaven playlist, because that's where I've got all my heaven videos. Why are there chairs in heaven? So as I looked at the mountains, instantly I knew if I wanted to be on the top of that mountain, all I had to do was think, I want to be on the top of the mountain, and I would be there. So I learnt extremely fast, what we thought, we created. Our thoughts create. And we know this in our three-dimensional world. Manifestation, law of attraction, yes? So what we think, we create. And that was very, very put down into me straight away when I learnt it straight away when I got there. So I was watching people. I was watching the animals. I watched a dinosaur instantly turn into a little boy. I saw a little boy instantly turn into a dog. And instantly I knew that these were all the lives that that soul had lived. I watched this medieval woman, which I talk about in my book. She's there in all her medieval finery like Anne Boleyn, with the long wavy skirt and the big ruffs and the hair all tied up with the big headdress on. She was immaculate walking down the street. And as I thought about her, I became her. So I was her perspective now. I became her, and I could see myself walking behind her. So in heaven, we are one. We are everything. I wanted to be the grass below my feet. Instantly I was. If I wanted to be on the mountain, instantly I was. If I wanted to be part of the music that was playing, instantly I was. I explain in my videos, what is the music about? I explain in my book, what is the music about? So please get further information from my works out there. Okay, my videos are free to watch. Okay, so go and look at my playlist under my heaven experience, where I talk about things in more detail, because I was there for like 5 years. So obviously in this little video, I'm just giving you the basics. So I'm in this place for, I'd say, 18 months. I climbed up the stairs in the skyscrapers. Let me go there a couple of things. One was water. When I touched the water in the river, because I saw my reflection in the water, yes, but when I touched it, I became the water. So therefore, I was not wet as per se. And when I pulled my hand out of the water, I was dry. So water does not stay wet in heaven. Okay? I explained the sun, because the sun wasn't the same as here on earth. There was no day or night. And in fact, the whole time that I was there, I do not remember seeing nighttime at all. It was just constant. Okay? So I'm there, standing there, admiring and contemplating, being... I talk about how I turned into a duck. I became the duck. It's in my book. So I get this tap on my shoulder. And I believe it's her, the one that's always with me. And she said, it's time to go. Okay. Instantly now I'm back into that fog stage. And when I come out of it, I'm in front of this huge cathedral. Now, one thing that I do know for now that I've researched NDEs over the years, we create the reality that we see. I was brought up as a religious child. You know, I went to church a lot. We had a lot of church involvement. And therefore, this cathedral was a representation of my consciousness of what I had manifested under those wants or my desires or my intentions of what I wanted to see at this point. So I went into this huge cathedral, and the floorboards were made from the wood of trees that would have been 300, 500 feet long. There were pews in there with one plank of wood, and it would seat 30 people on these pews. The stonework on the sides of the walls were so huge, the rocks of sandstone used, and the rocks and the wood melded together. And I know how to meld, which is a medieval technique of melting wood into stonework. So I loved all this, seeing this. And as I walked to the front of this church, there were 3 beings there, and in front of them was a box. And this is the book cover of my book, and it's also in my book as well. There they are. So here we go. Let me just get my paperwork in order. Here they are. There's me in my pajamas. And this time again, I've got no feet. Because I don't think, in my personal opinion, I've asked myself, why did I have feet in heaven, but I didn't have them when I floated, and I didn't have them when I was in heaven? Because now I'm in my purest form again. I wasn't in heaven where we create what we are. Here I am as my soul. And now I have to live and heal everything I'd done in my life. So these 3 things in front of me, the middle one was about 12 foot tall, the other 2 on the sides are about 9 foot tall. And they didn't have a physical body. The energy flowed upwards like a waterfall. So that I could see the energy moving up towards the swirling 3-dimensional ball that existed like their head. So I was looking into there, and it was dimensional. I could see through them. I could see through the energy that was going up like this waterfall. And there was no communication verbally like we do here on earth. It was telepathic. And they said to me, "We are not here to judge." And instantly I knew what I had to do. I had to open the box in front of me. And when I opened the box in front of me, inside there was no walls or floor. It was endless. And inside this box there was millions and millions of little white, not white, they were clear, but they were like little bubbles. And in each one of these little bubbles, 3-dimensional bubbles, there was a little video player. And in each one of these little videos was a memory. And I knew from what they said to me, we're not here to judge, I had to pull out one of these bubbles, and I had to relive that moment of whatever I did or whatever someone else did to me. And I had to heal the pain, heal the emotional connection that I had to that memory. So here is a diagram from my book. It's in my book. Here is me holding, it's my hand. All right, so there's my hand. I'm holding one of the orbs of little energy bubbles, and inside is this little box. And I'm not egotistical. I don't talk about the good memories that I healed, which brought me so much joy, and I was crying for half an hour or so after the extenuating acceleration of happiness that I got from the good memories. I talk about the bad memories in my book. How it was when I pulled the tail on that cat. There's me as a baby, and I pulled the tail on this cat, and I felt the pain of the cat going up through me, because their tail is an extension of their spine. Or I should say it was an extension of my spine, because I was now the cat feeling this child pulling my tail. So I sat there and I had to answer, and that's why there's pews in this church. I sat down and I was bawling my eyes out because the pain was tenfold. The emotion was tenfold. The whole experience was 1,000 times worse than when it was when I was a child. So I'm sitting on this pew, this long chair, and I'm bawling my eyes out, crying, tears all over the floor. And I saw the water on the floor. And as I look and I say, well, I was only a baby. How do I know what's wrong unless I learn? Suddenly I healed that memory. I healed it. So the energetic imbalance was now balanced out back to neutral, where there is no emotional attachment now to that cat. And instantly all that water around me that were my tears simply vanished. I healed that memory through my compassion, my love, and most of all, understanding of the perspective of what that other animal at that point went through. So when I think about how long was I in my life review for, I healed thousands of those memories. I'm just remembering some of them now. And the funny thing is now, when I try to remember those memories, you know, when I remember as a baby sitting on my grandmother's lawn, pulling that cat's tail, I can't remember it anymore because it's no longer relevant. It's not there anymore. It's been healed. And the only reason why now I remember that memory is when I stood there in front of the big three and I healed that memory when it was in its little box. And after I'd healed it, that bubble disappeared. The bubble disappeared. It wasn't relevant anymore. It no longer existed because I'd healed that karmic ripple of my emotional upheaval that created that instance. So when I think about how long in time did it take to just heal one memory, that one that I talk about with the cat, I had to look at myself first as the person that pulled the cat's tail. Then I had to relive the cat where I was the cat and someone else was pulling my tail. And then I had to watch it from overall where I'm comparing and I'm judging and I'm thinking, calculating, self-analyzing. Why did I do that? Why did the cat do that? Blah, 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 blah. Then I was sitting on the chair for the longest times, bawling my eyes out. So it could have been 10 minutes. Some of those memories that I went through were half an hour. So 45 minutes, an hour. So how long does it take to heal one memory? And then you multiply that by thousands and thousands and thousands. So I say that I was there for at least 18 months in my life review. But then at the end of that, I get a tap on the shoulder again. And I hear her say, it's time to go. And I knew instantly. It was like that knowing that comes with a psychic. I knew that I had lived there long enough to remember what I'd been through. So even today, 22 years later, I can still remember the colour and I can still remember the feeling of that cat's fur. I can remember the claws. I can remember the hair in its ears and how it twitched with the wind going through it. So that's why they left me there for so long, so I would remember. So I would tell others about this. So then, let me go back to where I am in my tables of contents. Floating, I covered the blue orbs. I did the fog stage. Chapter 8 is about, is there still heaven? Where I'm now in front of the big three. So I talk about the big three in chapter 9. Chapter 10 is my life review. Chapter 11 is the white space. So when I came out of this fog after doing my life review, I'm now in this space where there's no walls, no floor, no furniture. There's nothing. It's just pure white. Now, if you've watched the last episode of Manifest, that it's on Netflix, the very last episode when they come out of the plane, finally, they're in that white space and they're walking on nothing. That's where I was. And I've seen it in another movie with Jennifer Garner, where she was walking through this room with nothing. There's no floor, no ceiling, no roof, no windows, no furniture, no colour, except for the purest of white. And that's where I found myself. And I had my feet, and I'm still wearing my pyjamas. And way over in the distance, she was only this big, was my great-great-great-great-grandmother. Her name was Karina. And as she comes walking towards me, she gets bigger as she's walking towards me, because there's no floor, no ceiling to compare distance distance or space. So as she comes towards me, I saw her clothes. She was wearing a very basic brown dress, no shoes, no jewelry, and her hair was just sort of straight like mine today. Very basic, because jewelry is not required there, okay? But we can wear jewelry if we want to. All we have to do is, I want to wear my beautiful red ruby ring, and instantly we're wearing our beautiful ruby red ring, okay? So she came towards me and she was extremely angry. She said, "What are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here." Oh my God, I'd been there for so long, years at this point, and I thought, wow, this is so different. Why is she so angry with me? She came up to me and said, her finger was right in my face. "You shouldn't be here." And I said, "Whoa, hang on. How am I supposed to know where I am? I don't know where I am." She said, "You've got to go back." I said, "How can I go back when I don't know where I am?" And she was like, "Ugh! What do I do?" And then she started to compose herself, and she's like patting down her dress. She breathes in and out. She does this big sigh. She says, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "No." She said, "I'm Karina, your great-great-great-great-grandmother. I lived in 1920s. She told me where she lived. She told me the name of her husband. She told me the city where they lived in the 1820s. She told me everything about her, but she went into great detail. What she started with was all her life, how they built, how they turned and found, how they found the block of land to build the house, first of all. How they then picked the trees to cut down. How did they make an axe?" She went on and on and on and on and on just about how to make an axe. How they had to get the stone and do this against the stone to make an axe, to make it sharp. And how they had to tick, 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 make the hole to put a branch through to make the axe, so then they could weld it, and they put little chips of wood in to wedge it so it wouldn't open and break when they were using it to cut down trees. She told me in depth about clothes, how they made cotton, how they made a needle to sew. Oh my God. She told me about this device, because she didn't name it, but she said, "You make this thing out of wood." So she showed me how to make it and how to cut the trees down and make the wood. Oh my God, it was just so long, this conversation, just about her laundry apparatus. And then it would fold, and she could put it on her back, and she'd carry it down to the river, like this stream but near their house, and she'd put it down, and it was like a board that they wash their washing on, and you'd whack the clothes against it to get out all the dirt, etc. And then how you clean the clothes in the water, and then how you've got to hang them up over the trees, the branches in the trees, so they dry in the shade. Oh my God, how long were these conversations? You know, when you're on the phone to someone and you talk for an hour, "Hey, how you going, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, did you hear about Joey? Oh, blah, blah, blah." You get off the phone after an hour and you think, okay, what was I just said? What was just said to me? Now multiply that by thousands. That's how long these conversations went. And then she started talking about me. She said, "Lynda, you've got to go back." And I said, "Oh yeah, why? I like it here." I actually said to her, "I like it here. I don't want to go back." And she said, "But you're going to have a daughter. So remember this date." Because remember, I died in 2001. She said, "Remember this date, for that is the day you conceive your daughter, your child." And I always remembered that date. And my daughter was Natasha, and she was born at 26 weeks after that date. So luckily I remembered that date. She said to me that I would work with a great... So she didn't say police. She spoke in old school. So I just say to people, yeah, she told me I work with the police, but in her terminology it was old school. She said, "You will work with the great force, those in charge who dictate the rules of the land." she said, you will be there and they will wear blue. And I went, okay, so that's the police, right? She said, you will be working there for 10 years and you will need to leave. They will force you to leave because of the mental distress that you get. Now, oh, bear with me. So, sorry about the interruption. I just got mail, so I had to go down and get my mail. Okay, so I'm standing there with my great-great-great-great-grandmother. And she says all the stuff about herself. And then she tells me all about my future life. She told me I'd work with the police for 10 years, and I actually did, from 2002 to 2012. She told me that I would leave there due to the mental distress that they caused me. And I did. I actually got PTSD from what I was doing with my job. So she told me I'd need 2 years off, which I did. So 2012 to 2014. And it was in January 2015 that she told me that I would work for 2 years as a person who taught others how to respond to those who were not well. So we all know what that job is. It's a first aid trainer. And I'll tell you a little story. I didn't go out to just say, oh, well, this is the prophecy, I'm going to make it come true. I was actually working as an in-home carer for a boy who had multitudes of illnesses and he was quite handicapped. So part of that condition of that employment was that I had to go and get a first aid course so I could look after him when he had his convulsions. So I was sitting in the first aid course on a Thursday, and at the end of the course, the trainer said, does anybody here want to become a trainer because we're very short-staffed? Put your hand up if you've ever done CPR on somebody. I put my hand up. I was the only one, which was ironic, out of 30 people. And the trainer said to me, have you ever done CPR? And I said, I've done CPR on 6 people in my life, and I've also had CPR done on me. And he said, how fast can you start as a trainer? He said, do you have a training certificate? And I said, yes, I got that with the police. So why did I get that with the police? I was a trainer. So I was a trainer of first aid January 2015 until January 2017. Exactly 2 years, like she told me. She told me about my daughter who I'd have in 2006. My daughter's now nearly 18 years old, coming up in July this year. So everything she told me is coming true. But then she said, you must go back and do all this stuff, for there are lessons to learn. So she started telling me about life lessons and how it works. Why do we learn things? To create that karmic ripple in our conscious awareness or our perspective. So then as she's telling me, she said, look, you've got to go back because I don't want you to go into there. So I turned around and I thought, what's where? And I turned around because this thing had been behind me for what I call about 18 months and I had never seen it there. And it was this tunnel. It was in depth. You could walk into it and right at the end was pure white. But this tunnel turned left and right at the same time. It was going clockwise and anti-clockwise at the same time. And she was pointing in it. And she said, if you go in there, you can never return to who you were. So that's reincarnation. That was me staying in heaven or reincarnation. So she told me about reincarnation and how we get to assign ourselves to the lessons that we want to learn. That was one of her quotes. So she said all this stuff to me after she told me all about herself, all about myself, and then where I was going. So the second half of my book is called The Teachings of Heaven. It's all the stuff that she told me, how to be somebody who goes to heaven, how to get rid of all this pain, trauma, regrets and grudges now. So when we're standing in front of those big 3 and we have to do our life review, it's not so bad. So I teach this now as part of who I am. I've went out and I got my PhD. That's why I'm Dr. Lynda Cramer. I don't have a medical degree. I'm a philosopher. I'm a theologist. And most of all, I'm honest. and I'm not pretentious. I tell my truth, and I want you to become what I saw when I was there, without the pain of going through all this healing of our past hurts. So on my YouTube channel, I've got a heaven playlist. You can go in there and have a look at all my breakdowns of what happens in heaven. If you want to be interviewed by me, please let me know so I can interview you, because I do have a couple of guests on there. Under another playlist, there's guests there. I've got another playlist for personal development. And most of all, if you want my books, the link is below. I've got 4 books, because one of the things that I now do is I see spirit guides. So I love drawing people's spirit guides. So in my book, Spirit Guides and Life Paths Explained, I show pictures of who their spirit guides were. Yeah, there was a pig in there. So they talk to me. And I've even seen a leprechaun turned up one day. Okay? So we can't say what and who is out there, because there's so much out there. But the very fact that we have this hope and that we believe in what is out there, we don't need to judge it. We don't need to say, oh yes, I'm definitive about what I know, because I'm still at that cusp of only learning a minuscule part of it, but I'm trying to do my research. So if you want to be a guest of mine, please let me know. I talk about ghosts. I've got a whole playlist there just about ghosts. Why do they stay? What shouldn't we say to ghosts? So I've got a book called Ghosts Explained, if you're interested in that one, if you're an avid ghost hunter. So it's also got real ghost photos in there too that I took, so I know they're real ghost photos. So my integrity and my reputation's on the line. But this is my NDE story. This is what happened to me. I love that you're interested. I love that you're learning this stuff, because I want you to be your full potential of what I saw I was when I was in heaven. Thank you so much for watching. Love you all. Talk to you all soon. Bye.